This time, on An Architect's Perspective, I sit down with Dr. Carmen Espegel to continue our exploration of Villa E1027. Carmen reflects on Gray's complex legacy, her confrontation with Le Corbusier, and how her ideas continue to shape architectural thinking. Let's take a listen. Carmen, we've had a great day looking at some of Eileen Gray's houses, but before we get into this, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to stay here with you and to have the possibility to visit some of the works of Eileen. I'm an architect. Well, I am really a three-headed architect. What does it mean? I am a professional, I am a teacher, and I am a researcher at the same time.
So you've got this very broad and wide career, which is fantastic. But how did you get involved with the study of Eileen Gray in such detail? What drew you to Eileen Gray?
Well, I went to visit a professor of mine who gonna be my director of the thesis, and I asked him, I would like to make the doctorate, but do you have any suggestion? And he said, yes, I have these 10 suggestions to you. And he presented me 10 possible subjects for the thesis. And I saw a house made by an English woman in France, but she was an interior designer. She was not as an architect. And I said, okay, well, that's great. I want to follow that.
Was she English? She had an English family, but she
English
had
and Irish.
English and Irish. Strong
English
connections.
and Irish family.
If she was here today with us, she would say she was Irish, would she not?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Irish.
That's fantastic. So your PhD was set, you had your question that you're answering for your PhD, and then you read more about Eileen Gray and you stumbled across the Villa E1027.
Yes, and I went to the archives in the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Right, so your passion and knowledge in libraries and archives was growing, but then eventually you found yourself on the beach looking at this. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Marvelous. It was the third time I visited the house in 1995. The first time I just came here from France, because on that time I was working in Grenoble, and I wanted to know if the house was still exist.
This was just you yourself?
Yes, I myself alone.
Fantastic.
When I was around 30.
Right.
So I discovered that the house existed, but just in the last 2 hours before I had to come back to Grenoble. So I took several photographs. I was not sure about if it was a villa, because it was full of paintings of Le Corbusier.
And you went inside the villa?
No, only from outside, and the Cavanon and
Okay.
the Étoile de Mer, which is the other building which is behind.
And what thoughts and emotions were you experiencing at this time?
It was really very, very exciting, because I really didn't know perfectly if the house was the house of Eileen Gray, and because we hadn't the strict address of the house.
Okay.
So it was a supposition.
And that was from your research at the Victoria
Yes,
and
for
Albert
my
Museum.
research. That was my first trip. And then the last one, I came into the house. Inside.
Talk to us about that.
Well, that was the last, and I wanted to take more photographs from the inside, because I only took photographs in the other trips from outside. It was just 95, and one of the ladies who lived behind told me, be careful, because there was a murder, something like that. That's in the house. And I said, okay, doesn't matter, I will try. So I went down to the beach, to the rocks, and I came into the house, crossing a hole in the fence, and I was able to come in. And then it was completely ruined, glasses broken. It appears that someone was living, or it was living there, abandoned, completely abandoned.
And this was probably the first time you saw Corbusier murals at that time?
Yes, no, but Corbusier murals from outside, there were some of them.
But inside, though?
And inside was the first time.
At that time.
Yes, it was really, I was astonished because of the strength of those paintings, completely different than what I have studied in the books and with the photographs of the time.
Well, we'd love to hear more about your thoughts of Corbusier murals and such like. But for now, maybe we could just turn back to Eileen Gray's early part of her life. So she had an aristocratic background. Her family were Irish as well as English. She found herself studying in Paris.
Yes. First in London and then in Paris.
Oh, yeah, at the Slade School.
The Slade School and then in Paris.
Yeah, before the First World War. Was she independently wealthy at this stage?
Yes, completely. So that led her to do whatever she wanted.
And so she somehow found herself in this community creating certain pieces of artwork. She was very interested in lacquer work and the Japanese influence.
So she started to learn how to do lacquers, but she wanted to transform the traditional lacquer that she has received. For instance, the materials she uses were always a little bit modern, a little bit different. No, for instance, metal, mother of pearl inlays, or bas reliefs. She combined, I don't know if you know the stand folding.
Yes.
She combined abstraction in one side and figurativism in the other side, which is also specifically particular from Eileen.
When you're talking about this folding, you're talking about a screen, is that right?
The screen.
And on one side we have
on one side is an abstraction image. A figure which is completely abstract, and the other side is figurative.
And I understand they reach phenomenal prices now at auction.
Yes. That way of working of Eileen, that control and melange, mix tradition and new techniques was typical on all the works she did.
Right. And I think this particular part of her life led to her around 1912 opening her own shop. And she was now in business trying to sell her furniture and
rugs and carpentry.
And that evolved into some interior design work as well as producing rugs and such like. So she was almost a furniture designer as well as now starting to think about interior design as well. Is that correct?
Yes, she started with lacquer, then with some furniture, and then continued with the rugs, and then arrived to the interior design, a complete interior design. At the age of 50, she started to be an architect or to work as an architect.
And then we get to this point where somehow she's thinking about her own villa with her lover that we haven't spoken about. Can you just introduce who her lover was?
Yes. The lover was Gian Vici, a Romanian architect who studied architecture in Paris and who was the director on that time of the most important magazine called L'Architecture Vivante.
And through that, they probably would have had connections to other architects.
Yes. They had this close friendship. He knows the work she have done of interior design, of rugs, design of furniture, and so on. And he asked her to move to architecture. He demanded her, please, could you build a house for me in the south of France? And she said, okay. She took the car and started to look for a plot.
Okay. And it was at this stage, this relationship became a love story, did it not?
Yes. Finally, they were lovers for a time, till 32, something like that.
Carmen, we have Eileen Gray as an accomplished furniture designer, ugly interior designer at this stage. She's thinking about architecture. Can you speak a little bit about what you think was going on in her thoughts about how should connect to the furniture and that conversation between furniture and architecture for this new villa that she's designing for her lover?
She started a little bit before the villa to learn how to draw architecture with Marian Gorska, I think is the name. But for her, it was exactly the same thing, to design a spoon or to design an object or to design a house. For her, it was the same work, the same intellectual and formal work. Even the drawings was very nice because the drawings was for architecture was the typical drawings of an interior design that draw the plan here and the elevations like that, no? Folded, no?
Yes,
folded.
Yeah.
That is a typical expression design, expression drawing of an interior design. And she continued with the same technique, but with the architecture. Really, it's because it's very difficult to differentiate one and the other subject in the works of Eileen.
Would you think it's fair to say then, at this particular stage in the history of architecture, that perhaps some of the other architects of that time hadn't thought about their buildings in the same way that Eileen Gray had considered the design of the furniture and the house. If we look at some of Corb's early photographs, you see sort of much older furniture that doesn't have that narrative. When Corb originally visited the house and saw the level of thought that she had engaged with respect to her furniture, do you think he felt there was something missing from his work, and latterly he employed and worked on the interiors more?
Well, maybe, but he has already done some theory of furniture and interior design, but he never built that theory.
I hadn't realized it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has already written and researched some ideas on the theory of the new furniture for the new modern architecture. And maybe because he saw the house, he decided to incorporate that work in the team.
So we've spoken about Eileen's early years, her family, her history in art and architecture education. For people that may not be familiar with the house, can you just describe the house physically? What would you see
the house
if you were
is a small house, 150 square meters in 2 levels. The main level is 110, so it's quite big. And the living room maybe is around 70. So a big living room with a different uses inside. That were very well combined because of the furniture, the built-in furniture and the mobile furniture, and the rest were rooms. One room in the main level and 2 rooms in the lower level.
And for the benefit of the people that may not be familiar with the house, the arrival sequence has been considered quite. Maybe you could just talk us through what you would see if you were to arrive at the house.
It's a lover nest. So the arrival is an arrival absolutely, how can I say, erotic, but also is in the tradition of the Arabian entrances, always protected. The interior part, the interior space from the outside.
So you arrive on the hillside.
Yes.
You don't come. You're not exposed to the ocean until you get through.
First of all, you arrive into the station. You have to stop the car there.
Okay.
So first, the car doesn't arrive to the house. First, she chose that plot because of that. Then you have to walk and to get nude in a sense of your ideas, of your previous ideas, to arrive to the house. The entrance could be one place of the house just to write a book.
Just the entrance?
Yes, that's the entrance. And I would do it.
That's the book.
I would do it. Yes, because I think it's really powerful. First of all, if you delayed, spend the time in the entrance, in a small entrance, you provoke to the visitor.
Anticipation?
This is why I said it's erotic for several reasons. First, because it goes in one way, then returns. She used the zigzag and the chicane geometry to enter everywhere.
So you've got a sense of build-up, anticipation,
yeah. And
denial.
then you again turn to the right and rotate to the left. And when you arrive to the entrance, then yes, to find the
Eventually you get there.
The sea, the Mediterranean Sea in front of you.
It's the final moment.
Yeah, it's the final moment. It's like an ecstasy.
I can't wait for the book to come out. It's going to be great. It'll be a bestseller. Okay. The entrance of Eileen Gray. Maybe you could help me understand what people would see from the ocean side.
Well, the north side is quite close, and then you enter into the house, and the house is completely open to the east, south, and west.
Right.
On the east, the living rooms. Why? To get the morning sunshine. The south, the main living room, the dining room, and so on, but this main space. And on the west, the alcove, a little corner for the siesta and for reading, and a hammock in the terrace.
Okay.
And then the garden, which is in the lower floor. That's it.
Sure.
The garden and the sea.
And the 5 points of architecture which Le Corbusier published, without getting too much into the influence of Corb at this stage, it's raised off the ground, it has plotty, it has roof terrace, horizontal strip windows. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about Corb's influence at this stage on what you would see there today.
Well, she absorbed everything. What she produced was not impure because of the different influences. She could transform all these influences into a unique system that is really rich. But combining all of them, there is no one more important than the other. One is, of course, the machine habitaire de Le Corbusier, the 5 points, as you said, but always with differences, no?
Yeah.
With differences or nuances. And then the English house, of course, because of her family. Then the influence of the local architecture, the vernacular. And finally, the Italian villa that has a lot of influence of the Italian villa in relation with how the house is positioned into the landscape.
Yeah. And I think one of the things maybe Eileen Gray would say that her house has departed somewhat from the modernist philosophies because it's deemed to be much more of a human experience within this house than, say, some of the other modernist buildings. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
She thought that the house is a coquille shell. No, it's closer to the body. So this philosophy of the phenomenological side of the architecture has to be there.
Is this not born out of a response to Le Corbusier's "A house is a machine for living in"?
Yes.
And her response to that was what?
Yes, in a sense, it was a response. In the dialogue she and Badovici wrote, I recognize the character of Eileen Gray in what is architecture close to the soul, to the anemic part of the human being, and Badovici maybe, which is closer to the mechanicism, modern architecture, technical, and all these questions. So this combination of both of them have done this product that is really special.
And so for modernism in general, I think she did change the tract of modernism. You know, Tim Benton talks about this idea of non-heroic modernism, and I think we have Eileen to thank for that.
Yes, the text Badovici and Eileen Gray wrote in L'Architecture Vivante is one of the most important texts of the time because it was very critic with a strict modernism, no? With a rational modernism, we can say. He was really, really very critic at that time. Maybe it was one of the first.
So, Carmen, you've mentioned that this was a response, almost a critique of modernism potentially moving into a slightly different direction. And to set the scene, this was a house for the lovers, Eileen Gray and Badovici. Was it not the case that at a certain stage during their relationship, Corb found himself in the area, he started to do a few projects in the local area, and then he actually ended up living pretty much next door to the house because he was friends with Badovici,
Yes.
Probably more so than Eileen Gray.
Yes, they were very close friends.
And at some stage, Eileen Gray's relationship with Badovici started to decline and she left. It was at this point, can you help us understand, did she actually gift the house to Badovici when she left and when the relationship fell apart? So it was now his house.
Yes, and she was waiting to recover the house when Badovici died, but the new lover of Badovici didn't
approve of that idea.
Approve that.
Okay, so Eileen Gray's now left. Le Corbusier started to frequent the house more. He spent longer periods of time in the house. I think at this time Eileen Gray was in Paris when she heard of what Corb was doing in the house.
Yes, that is the moment of the frescoes of Le Corbusier, when the frescoes, when Le Corbusier painted the frescoes in the villa, because Le Corbusier asked, or Badovici gave him a permission to paint on the white walls of the villa.
And at this time, Eileen Gray got wind that Corb was painting these murals, or when did
And
Eileen Gray?
she saw the murals, as far as I know, because Le Corbusier published the drawings without saying it was the villa by Eileen Gray and Jan Badovich.
And how would have Eileen Gray felt when she read
She was crazy about that. She thought it was a violation. This is what she says. Well, for me, it's like what the dogs go to the street and let several marks to keep the territory, its territory. You know.
When these murals were painted, and Eileen Gray knew about them through the publication, did she respond to Corb? Did she say, why are you not referencing me? Or what was the was there formal correspondence?
No, she never talked with Le Corbusier. She talked with Badovich.
Expressed her concern.
And expressed
her outrage or her inappropriate feelings to why these have done. So was the feeling that...
And Badovich asked Le Corbusier to remove the paintings.
Upon Eileen's request?
Yes.
And what? Clearly he didn't do it.
And of course, Le Corbusier said no.
They should stay.
Yes, they should stay, and they stay.
Wow. So was Eileen Gray's repulsion for these murals aesthetical reasons, or was it the fact that he didn't credit her for the villa in which they were painted?
Well, and the other question is, are they appropriate to the house? Not at all. If you understand the circulation and the space, the focus, the different focus of the house, it's just the reverse. Imagine this wall is blue. That means is a very strong point of the interior design. In the case of Eileen Gray, one of the places of the worst mural was in the living room, and that wall was the back of a scene. It was the back of a completed scene with different focus, but this was the most calm wall. He transformed with his painting, his fresco, transformed this wall into the front, into the figure. Instead of being the back.
So it's completely inappropriate in terms of
at all.
The style, but ironically, it's very hard now to separate the history of this house from those murals, because one might say that the only reason at a certain particular part of the history of this house that it's still standing is thanks to Le Corbusier.
Thanks to Le Corbusier murals.
Yeah,
we have to say that the house is still standing up because of the murals of Le Corbusier. If not, I'm sure it would be demolished because all the furniture and everything was sold by the last owner.
Oh no! So we have a situation where at the time Eileen Gray was repulsed by these murals, but now maybe she would have thanked him because of, ironically, it saved the house.
Well, we have to thank the murals
that
the house is standing.
But if you could just help us understand what you would see there now, because some of these murals have been removed, and that's a very interesting philosophical position within more recent memory, though, to make the decision to remove them.
Yeah, some of them were already disappeared. So I think two of them, one in the entrance on the right, was that disappeared before the restoration started,
right,
and other one in the ground floor also. But the rest remained. But Tim Benton, in the last revision, in the last restoration of the house, removed that one because it was restored in a very bad way by an artist, local artist.
The particular position that the Friends of E1027 have adopted with respect to preserving and restoring, conserving these murals, would that be seen as something that Eileen Gray would have approved of as it stands there today?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, but they are patrimony.
What do you think she would have...
protected, you cannot touch it.
Her philosophy would be, if she was alive...
No, of course, I'm sure that she would have
remove everything.
Yeah.
That would be her position.
Yeah.
Is it a richer architectural experience now to see them as examples of maybe architectural vandalism by Le Corbusier?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
So your position is to keep them?
my position is that the paintings are not has nothing in common with the house, has nothing in common with the space. It has nothing in common with her idea of architecture, the calm, the sensibility, the refinement of the house is completely destroyed because of these murals. But they are there. It's part of the history. I'm sure we can make a restoration that can show and hidden the paintings. So they could maybe imagine in a way to show or not to show the
So
paintings.
if Corb hadn't used the mural fresco idea and actually just created a painting that could be removed and replaced as you see fit, that would be much more appropriate for Eileen Gray and yourself, is that?
Yes.
Yes. So the objection is it's a permanent.
Yes, the objection is that is there permanently, and it was a kind of how can I say? It's an insult.
It's an insult.
It's an insult. So, well, for me, it's an insult, and for Eileen Gray also, and for the people who knows the work of Eileen Gray also the same.
So, Carmen, in your article, you mentioned that modern architecture needs to be reread because it still contains hidden information. Maybe you could just enlighten us a little bit about what you meant.
Well, Susan Bookmores talk about history in the way that I understand also history, that is something which is not fixed and finished. History is a big box with enormous information. Depending on the eyes you look to that knowledge, you can discover one side of the history or another side of the history. For instance, when the women started to enter into the history to know what happened, because why women were not there, they were, but they were transformed into a different persons or into different things. For instance, they forgot to write their names, or they hidden their names even, or erase completely from the history. But you know they were there because the history has a lot of information that you can find. Of course, we found different layers of the history that nowadays we are rereading. This is why I said that the history is something which is not dead, it's something which is alive. And every time you have more knowledge, you have more open mind, you can discover different things inside. Yes, there were much more women working with important architects on that time. Than what we thought. For instance, Charlotte Perriand, Le Corbusier, Grete Sud-Zelichowski with Ernst May in Frankfurt am Main, or Lily Reich with Mies van der Rohe. A lot of them, Louis Kahn, Antique.
So Anne Griswold Ting worked with Kahn.
Yeah.
In America?
In America, and did a big job, and one of the main structures of Louis Kahn that everybody thought it was from Louis Kahn, it was from her. So, well, there are a lot of women architects or women who worked as an architect on that time that we didn't know about them. But also, the way they work was completely different. For instance, they work more in horizontal than in a hierarchical way. They used to work in groups. They took attention on small things and in architecture, which is not talking about the superabundance, but it's talking about daily things. All those questions are now really, really very important in the agenda of the offices of architecture. Because we discovered the interior not so long ago, the importance of the interior. So now their way of doing is influence a lot of studios of men and women.
That's fantastic.
And because I discovered a lot of primitive societies and small groups of nomad societies that women was in charge of building the house or mounting the tents. No? So I study this relation under an anthropological way of thinking, and I discovered a lot of questions very interesting. The myths, the importance of the entrance. So there are a lot of things in relation with women and architecture. We are the first architecture. We are the first house. We are the first room of a human being. Huh? Why? Because we are a shelter. We are
Offering
the
a shelter.
first space, interior space for them. And this is why I say, well, we know a lot about architecture. So why they say always, no, women are not related with architecture. I don't know why. Well,
So how do you portray Eileen to your young students, particularly female students? What does she stand for in your mind, and how do you communicate that to your students? What's the important takeaways that you would say?
the position, the critical position in front of architecture. You have to criticize and to read the things in a critical way, take the past but put it in the future. Heterogeneity,
Heterogeneity,
diversity, richness.
Unpack that for us a little bit.
Heterogeneity.
Let's start with that one.
I learn architecture saying, okay, you have to look for homogeneity, now in the sense of the unique object and something like that. We learn through Eileen Gray that is not true. We learn that we can have influences from a very different perspectives and to get a marvelous object or a marvelous architecture, because it's an architecture for improve the life of a human being.
Right.
Eileen Gray started with a particular user, Badovici, Jan Badovici, which is really particular. But she was able to talk about the universal human being instead of a particular, and to do theory. So it's a kind of bottom-up architecture. But in that sense, I think Le Corbusier is just the reverse. No, he was always talking about the universal man. This is for everyone, and so on. And do this type of architecture, which is up, down.
Well, I suppose another example of what you're saying maybe is the furniture that she's designing for very specific moments.
Yes.
And sort of how the house is used with cork lining on certain trays to stop noises. Being made, and so, which is probably a good example. So you've got heterogeneity. What were the other ones you were mentioning there?
Heterogeneity, diversity.
Diversity.
Yes.
Talk us through a bit about how you're
to make from this melange something which is not a melange.
So diversity, heterogeneity, and was there a third?
Richness.
Maybe you just talk a bit about how you understand richness in relation to her work.
Well, richness in a spatial conception, not in materials, because she was able to work with a more sophisticated materials when she was an Art Deco artist.
But lacquer
and woods, very expensive woods and so on. But she was always also able to design fantastic objects with really industrial elements, industrial materials, as these steel tubes or plastic celluloids and so on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So diversity, heterogeneity, and richness.
Yes. So less impositive and more transversal.
Right. Fantastic.
Yes. Why? Because she designed for you, but you have to discover what is behind that object. When we talk about the fountain of Duchamp, no, you take the fountain, you put it out.
Urinal.
Yeah, you put it in the museum. So, and you discover, oh my God, this is another object. This is a different object. I never saw this object from this perspective.
Yeah. Because
why? Because the
context.
The context is
change.
That limits you to look to the object and discover all its richness. With Eileen Gray happens the same, no? She produces an object that maybe can be used for this reason, but you have to discover what other things can do with that object and can change your way of thinking.
Thinking about it, yeah.
So it's a kind of a hit on your intelligence.
Interesting. It's through her furniture as well.
Yes, yes, because she provokes you to think and to debate with yourself. What happened here? What does it mean, this?
I feel that if you quite rightly were very instrumental in getting Eileen's ideas known academically, but I don't feel that necessarily the practice, the profession has taken on her ideas as much. Academically, we're almost there in understanding more and more about her, but there hasn't been, in my mind, the leap architecturally in what she's achieved in furniture and interiors and the relationship between interiors and furniture, which I think it, for me, is the next chapter of seeing the evolution of ideas percolating from Eileen's work into actually built structure, not just essays.
No, yes, I know what you mean. I used to say to my students that we don't have to work to copy forms,
No.
but
The philosophy.
which is behind the forms. In this case, I think Eileen Gray's ethic and political engagement is very important when she decided to design something. That is the point of view, no? To be absolutely with a lot of influences, but to try to do those influences your own character, or to how she confront the reality, to analyze the reality, to produce a different architecture who support a new man or a new woman of the time. She was very worried about the zeitgeist. The artist has to be someone from his time or her
from
time.
the moment.
Yes, from the moment. You can see the past as something to copy. You have to be in the position of those artists were there who were criticizing the society in different ways and who produced new architecture because the needs and the thoughts of the new men and women of that time were different. Right. And so I think in that sense, Eileen Gray influenced a lot in architectural profession.
Carmen, one of the things we have in common, we both teach. What advice have you got for young architects, specifically young female architects coming up through the profession?
Well, no limits.
No limits?
If I could say no limits. You don't have to have any limit. You have to analyze what you have in your society, what are the needs of the people and so on. What is the architecture you have for that? Make the critics on that, and then have no limits in the sense of, okay, you can do whatever you want, you can do whatever people need. So, and as I said before, don't copy the forms. You have to copy the content, the ethical. You have to be an ethical position. If you have an ethical position, you design in one way or in another, but I'm sure you will always be in a correct way, you know?
Yeah.
You have to be a person of your time. You have to incorporate all these things.
As was Eileen.
Yes, as was Eileen. Yeah, an artist has to answer to the actual needs.
And I'm sure you would agree to encourage all students to come understand Eileen's work, her influence on modernism and how that's shaping modernism. This is a phenomenal architect until the 90s with not much written about her. So I think, we would encourage everyone to come and look at this building and study Eileen's work, both architecture, furniture.
We have to do it.
Yeah, some great advice and thoughts and inspiration there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you to Eileen Gray.
Thank you indeed to Eileen Gray and John Badavici. Maybe you could just describe to the audience where one would find out more about yourself and your work and your books.
Well, you can find me in Wikipedia, in English or in Spanish. There is also a page that I like very much. It's in Spanish and it's called One Day, One Architect, una arquitecta, one female architect. Un día, una arquitecta. There you can find not only me, but an enormous amount of women, female architects from all over the time. And then in my webpage, in Espegel Arquitectos, you can also find some works and photographs of my projects and so on.
All the links will be in the show notes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Well, before we go, Carmen, I'd just like to thank you one more time. It's been fantastic to hear your reflections on modernism in general, and how that may need to be rethought. We thank you for your insights to Eileen Gray, not just your thoughts about Villa E1027, but her wider influence on the canon of architectural history. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
Next time on An Architect's Perspective, I'm visiting Ahmedabad to explore 3 key works by Charles Correa and the early development of tropical modernism. The full video will be on YouTube if you'd like to watch, or if you prefer to listen, just search for An Architect's Perspective wherever you get your podcasts.